Hi, I'm Susie Phillips.
And I'm Scott Phillips. Welcome to the American Woodshop.
Today we're going to build the ultimate garden chair.
Okay, and it starts out with a cross brace. Learn how to build your very own today on the American Woodshop. Stay around.
The American Woodshop with Scott Phillips is brought to you by
Woodcraft, since 1928, providing traditional and modern woodworking tools and supplies to generations of craftsmen. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Craig, from the first cut to the final assembly, providing woodworkers with products that help simplify woodworking challenges. Craig.
Gorilla Glue, for the toughest jobs on planet Earth.
For dry hands that crack and split, O'Keeffe's Working Hands. Easy Wood Tools, American-made tools for all skill levels.
Scott, it's time to do a new take on an old classic.
That's right, and the classic is this cross brace chair. I made this on the American Woodshop 17 years ago. And the truth is it needs a little bit of work, and we'll get into restoration of outdoor furniture later in the show. But you need to see how this works. You see this curved leg for the seat? Well, there's our template right there. And that's the key to this project that we're going to make. And then this is a brace, and that's a brace. And as you slide the leg assembly through those two braces, the cross braces lock the seat into position. And it's super comfortable.
It really is.
Now what we're going to do is recreate one using slightly different techniques with this template out of hard maple. And then we'll get into outdoor finishes. So let's head over to the bandsaw to get started.
All right.
Susie's going to join us later, and she'll show us how to restore that beautiful cross brace chair, but let's sculpt one of our own. Now there's my template that's 2 1/4 at the widest point, 36 inches long, and what I'll do is cut out 2 pieces on material that's 1 1/4 inches thick, hard maple. So turn on the bandsaw, and whatever you do, be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety instructions that come with the tools and products you use in your wood shop. Work safe, work smart. Safety glasses, very important. Hearing protection as well. Now leave the line so I can sand down to it. I'm using a blade that's 3/8 of an inch. It has 3 teeth per inch. And it's tuned up with lots of tension, so it does what I want it to do. So I'll cut out the 2-leg seat braces. They're the 2 curved seat braces or work pieces. And next I'll cut out the seat board itself. I just used a permanent marker, laid in a graceful arch, getting away from defects. Now I'll just cut off the scrap and set that aside as we sculpt down all the parts here. It's good. Dust collection's on. The bandsaw is a dusty tool. I never run it without good dust collection. Leave the line. Now there's the seat board right there, 1 3/4 inches thick, roughly, and 13 plus across and at least 28 at the longest length. And I'll set that safely on the floor out of the way. And that comes to the back brace of this chair, the back of it. And this workpiece is 46 inches long, 12 3/4 across, and 1.5 inches thick. You can see I've already cut out a graceful curve down here using a compass to do my layout work. And up here you can see a 10-inch diameter circle, and then I back that in 1.5 inches to create another circle, and then I'll cut out those X's in these graceful curves. So let's just sculpt the outside of that. And then we have a couple more things to do at the bandsaw. So we're good to roll, dust collector on. Again, leave the line. With a 3/8 blade, I can cut a radius of a silver dollar, if I had to right there. Now, do not back all the way out of that cut. I'm swinging up into that curve, and as you curve that blade into that cut, make sure you give that blade somewhere to go by continuing to cut, leaving the line. This is not a foot race. Take your time as you sculpt this curve out. Keep your fingers out of the plane of the blade as well. So here's that beautiful backboard, and the circle's laid out. Have to pierce cut this with a jigsaw later on. I'll set that safely out of the way. And left and right of that, I need 2 verticals, and that's what I'm working up right now. This has some end check damage in it, so I have to cut that off. The total length on this is 38 inches long to the end. That's crack-free. And what I'll do is set up this rip fence or resaw fence, show you how to make a straight cut in just a second. Let me get this worked up. Here I'm bringing up the fence on the bandsaw, and I need to cut down the verticals to 2 3/4 inch finish width, and to that end I lock that in place parallel to the miter slot. No drift here. Let's make the cut. You'll see what I'm talking about. Give the blade plenty of time to carry away the sawdust as you make this cut. Never put my fingers in the plane of the blade, and that is a perfect, straight as an arrow cut right there. And the reason is I've got a really good blade on there. If you've spent less than $18 for a blade, well, that's just going to make you frustrated. I'm using what is called a quick corner on the number 4 curve right there, and I need to radius the end. I need 2 work pieces like this, and we're through at the bandsaw onto power plating with a hand power plane. With all the bandsaw work done, it's time to sculpt and plane the work pieces. This is a hand power planer. I lay the sole well away from the cutter down on the tool or the work piece first. Now watch what happens here. Turn it on. I hold that flat. Keep in mind, this is hard maple. Now let that come to a stop. And let's make one more pass here using the same technique. I'll use the same technique to smooth down all work pieces, and then I can do some power sculpting on the seat with grinder. I've used a hand power planer to plane everything down that I wanted plane smooth, and now I'm using these clamps that are hooked into the multifunction table. You can see the dogs on this side, and then I can bring this all tight, toggle that in, and that's not going anywhere. That's there to stay. Wonderful system. So now I can use a tungsten carbide cutter, except you can see how this one's all loaded up. Well, I like this style of cutter that has the holes in it. It's self-cleaning, and as you use it, you'll be able to see the profile you're cutting. Once I have that done, I use a 40 grit aluminum oxide on here. And of course, this is a dusty process, unlike the power planer. So dust mask on, and you can see right here, I've laid out a round curve in the pommel. How in the world can you expect something flat to be comfortable for something round? So I'll just sculpt this down. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is put 80 grit on this Rotec. It's on a dust extractor, and I'm going to get in there and smooth out the rough areas. And also, I'll work through 100 and 150 and finish with 220. And that is how I make the seat comfortable. I'll use these same sanding techniques with the Rotec and the 6-inch random orbital sander with dust extraction. And I just use this technique to sand all the parts down. I'm using a router plate that has a V-bit on the end of it here that I'm going to plunge down to make a cut and create this circle all the way around as an accent to the top of the chair. Now, here's how it goes. Okay, that fit is to a complete stop now, and I take the pivot screw out, and you can see I have a perfect circle here. Look closely. I have 4 areas that I'm going to cut out, and to do that, first I drill a pilot hole that's 3/8 of an inch in diameter, and then I can pierce a jigsaw blade through that, and then cut these 4 areas out. I'm using a blade that has 12 teeth per inch and it's 3 inches long to deal with this thicker workpiece. I'll cut those 4 out, and then it's on to the dominoes. So you can see how this back earth sign chair comes together, because that's exactly what this detail is. And what I've done is I've put wood glue in all of the mortises that I cut with the Domino XL, and I cinch all of these home, and I leave it proud so that the legs can ease through this zone. So that's home right now, and that looks really cool. And you can see the cavities here, the mortises, and I have lines that I've transferred to the mating piece that's going on to this side. But watch this. This is called the Domino XL. It has to be on a dust extractor. Let me turn it on. Do not do this at home. And as I push that fence down, you can see how that large bit makes that 14 millimeter cavity. Let's make one. I line it up on my layout line. I keep this fence square to this edge. I turn it on and I ease this straight in. This is hard maple. This is secured to the bench. Plenty of power there. I'll turn it off. And that is a perfect mortise right there. Now I'll repeat this wherever I have a line, and then I can glue the other upright in place. Keep it square and flat to your material here, turn it on, and keep this in one fluid motion straight in. Cutting mortises has never been easier. I'll get the rest of this positioned, make those cuts, and then we can put the back together. Everything is nice and tight. Glue is in those mortises, and as you swing this up, that's a great look. You leave these exposed, and those create one of the braces that you need for this chair. I'll swing this down. This is the back, and I've pre-tested and pre-drilled some pilot holes here so that when I line these screws up, heavy-duty screws, square drive, and secure those in place, we'll get a key dimension here because that makes this chair work. If you do not have this dimension to the bottom edge of this brace, down that road lies ruin. And that would be 14.5 inches to the bottom here, 14.5 inches to the bottom here, and to the middle of the mortise for that domino that's 3 up. It's 11 7/8. And that way the 2 1/4 inch brace will slide and lock perfectly when you put the seat in. I'll get the other 2 screws into position there, and it's onto the seat. All right, so it takes 4 screws in this back cross brace. It's 1 inch thick, 2 inches wide, and 20.5 inches long. And that's secured now. I'll ease that out of the way. And now this is the seat. The bottom is facing me. And I've drawn lines where I want the leg braces to go. And it has to be 13 1/8 inches apart as I screw these in with heavy-duty pocket hole screws. Now, those require a countersink that's 1/2 inch in diameter for the heads to be sunk properly. I've got the stop collar positioned so that I don't counterbore that hole too deeply, because if I do, well, the screw point would come through the other side. So right in the middle there, I want 3 per leg. I drill this so it's perpendicular to the surface, and then I go down to the stop collar. And now what I can do, I'm just going to switch that out, and I'm going to drill this all the way through. And that's a 3/16 inch bit right there, just like so. That's through now. I've got my pilot hole for all 3 holes, and now I've got this marked. This is number 2. This comes over here. And then what I'll do is ever so carefully line this up to my witness marks, and then I'll put the first pilot hole in. So I keep that held on center, I put the heavy-duty screw in, and I drive that home. And that takes a larger square drive. The pilot hole is key here. Now I'll repeat that process, and I want this edge to be parallel to the other leg, and the spacing is 13 1/8 inches apart, and I just have lines to that end. So drilling the pilot holes, that's key in this hard maple. You will not be able to do it if you don't have pilot holes. Very good. That's nice and tight. And once I get this side done, I'll do exactly the same thing for the other side. 3 screws per side. That way it will be strong forever. Susie's back. Now, what are you up to?
Well, I'm getting out these rusted screws and replacing them with new ones so we can restore this chair. I love the design. I love the way that's turned out, Scott.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, very cool.
It's a new twist on an old idea, and it really does have the right feel to it. It cants back at just the right angle so that when you sit in it, It's so comfortable. Great camp chair, wonderful garden chair. And we'll put an outdoor oil on this in a bit. We have some sanding to do, but also where that screw hole was that we used the router plate to pivot that circle of the earth sign, well, that will dry out. This Timbermate is hard to beat. It doesn't shrink as it cures out.
That's great.
Now let's get into some restoration tips. So you put enough glue on there and then plug that with a wood dowel, white oak, to match the quarter-sawn white oak. And if you want a stable project that's going to be exposed to outdoor elements all the time, quarter-sawn white oak is the way to go.
Yeah, we've had this about 17 years. It's really
held up well.
But it needs a little TLC now.
Now, once the glue is cured for about 20 minutes, and this has, and it's a good indoor-outdoor glue, you just lay a Japanese-style razor saw flush to the surface, and you can trim the excess of the plugs right off. And there's a trick to it. You have to flex the blade down, and you're being very careful not to cut into the wood itself. And you never put your hand in the plane of the blade, because literally you melt through the wood so quickly that that could be very dangerous. So Japanese razor saws, you do want a tooth count of about 20 teeth per inch when you're doing crosscuts. I don't want to cut into that one. The glue's still curing out. And so the rest of this restoration goes like this. We use a dust extractor with a 0.3 micron HEPA filter and an excellent 6-inch random orbital sander, and we sand this surface down thoroughly. Always wear a dust mask, an N95, NIOS 95 dust mask when you sand. And we have 3 ambient air cleaners in our wood shop. You need 1 cleaner for every 1,000 square feet. In our shop, 3,000 square feet. We've been doing this for, well, I have, for 40 years, so that's money well invested. What's your health worth? Price. So we sand this all down. Thank you. Okay, now here's a quick little tip for you. When you go to switch abrasives, all you need to do, if you have a dust collection hole pattern, is line up 3 holes. And that will line absolutely everything else up, including on this sanding system, the center hole, which is important because there's a jet stream that comes in along through these side holes right here. It's drawn in and it blows through the center, and it creates an air pad that this floats on. So that's important to line everything up. And then once it's sanded, we tack it off thoroughly. We want all the sanding residue, the abrasive residue, to be removed from the surface, because the finished surface can only be as good as the surface of the wood is before you start putting the outdoor oil on it. And so we can brush on liberal amounts of outdoor oil that has UV blockers, and then from there we let it cure, buff it lightly with a white nylon pad, and then put on 1 more coat, and that should be good for 3 to 5 years, depending upon how much sun exposure it has. And there are some great restoration tips for everybody. The reason we're using outdoor oil on these outdoor chairs, the oil penetrates into the fibers of the wood. And the other thing is, when you want to rejuvenate it, you can with light sanding. I don't like to use hard film finishes like a polyurethane on outdoor furniture, because ultraviolet light really breaks that film on the surface down. It's resistant to temperature and rain, but UV light just destroys the finish. A great finishing book is Understanding Wood Finishes by Bob Flexner. I highly recommend it. So we'll get this finished out, and you'll get to see the new versus the old. Hey, you're pretty good at this.
Hey, I love the grain in this. It's really beautiful. Man, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Well, it's been a good day in the American Wood Shop. We restored this old chair, gave it a new life, and the new keyed chair or cross brace chair, I love it. I love the little earth symbol. What do you think, Bear?
Well, in the wood shop, some days you get the bear and some days the bear gets you. And when you try new things, don't be afraid of failure, because those breakthroughs will lead you to your best projects. Bless you in your shop. See you next week when we tackle a beautiful bedstead project. See you then.
See ya.
Woodcraft, since 1928, providing traditional and modern woodworking tools and supplies to generations of craftsmen. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Craig, from the first cut to the final assembly, providing woodworkers with products that help simplify woodworking challenges. Craig.
Gorilla Glue, for the toughest jobs on planet Earth.
For dry hands that crack and split. O'Keeffe's Working Hands. Easy Wood Tools, American-made tools for all skill levels.
For more information behind the scenes at the American Woodshop, go to our website for complete details on tips, and like us on Facebook.
Away we'll go on the